Welcome to this eLearn Security video lesson on form extraction with Ruby. In this video, we're going to see how to write a simple Ruby script that is able to gather information about all the forms contained in a web resource. During our test, we will focus on some of the form fields, the more interesting for our purposes. For example, input fields with name and type are good candidates for extraction. We are also interested in the action attribute and the method attribute for each form. As you are aware, this is a task that can be achieved without using Ruby. For example, we could use a web browser and take a look at the HTML code of the web resource, but it will take more time, and we want to automate the process and create a tool that summarizes all of the interesting parameters. We will first use the power of the pry interpreter before writing the real script code. The interpreter helps the development because you can immediately see the results of your code, avoiding a lot of errors. So we suggest that you use the interpreter if you're going to develop a command line tool. Let's start by opening our pry interpreter. We need to require some libraries needed to request HTML resources and parse HTML documents. To do this, let's require OpenURI and the Nokogiri. In this video, we assume you already know these libraries, their features, and how to use them. Obviously, we can use any page as a target, but we want to use an interesting one. For our tests, we will use the HackMe named Foo Radio. HackMe is a platform that holds a collection of runnable, vulnerable web applications that we can use to learn web application security. Foo Radio is one of them, and it contains some interesting pages with forms that we would like to inspect. So let's start a new Foo Radio HackMe sandbox. We have to wait for the sandbox allocation. This may take some time. Now the sandbox is ready. This is our target Foo Radio web application. Let's start with inspecting the application and move into the registration page. We want to extract information about the form contained in the page. Here's a form in the page. We can see it with the browser. Let's inspect its source code to check if we are right. As we can see here, we have a form that points to the page login.php. If we click Next, we can see that there is another form. This is the registration form that we see in the center of the web page. So in the page there are actually two forms, the registration form and another strange one. What is this form? Exploring the page, we can see that the form is used as a strange and old way to develop a button, in this case the login button. If we inspect the registration form, we can see that there are some input fields with the names fname, user, and path. We can use the inspect element feature of the browser to write down all of the form field attributes, such as the name and the type, but it is a tedious task and it may require some time for bigger forms. Let's now see how to extract the same information using Ruby. Once again, the target resource is the Foo Radio registration page. So let's save the address into a variable named URL. Now we can parse the Foo Radio registration page using Nokogiri and OpenURI. In order to extract all the forms of the parsed document, we can use different methods. In this video, we will use the XPath // syntax. As you can see, we have an array containing two elements. These are the two forms that we saw before in the browser. Let's select the registration form that is contained in the element with the index of 1. For our task, it is better to save the registration element in a variable. So let's assign the previous command to a variable named reg. With the brackets notation, we can get the values of some important attributes. For example, we can see that action contains register_confirm.php. Here we can see that the method attribute is a post. Let's now see the HTML code of the registration form. We can use the toHTML method. Note that we can also use the serialize method. As you can see, with puts, we can extract more information about the form. For example, its input fields and the name and type of each of them. So let's do another search starting from the registration form. Using XPath, we can use the query .//input, which will extract all the input nodes starting from the registration form. As you can see, we have 4 input elements inside the registration form node. Remember that the results of the XPath method is an array, so we can select one of them using the brackets. The interpreter is very useful to inspect its structure. In this case, we have selected the input node with name user and type text. Let's now try to extract the name and the type of each input node inside the registration form. Since the XPath searching method returns an array of nodes, we can use the each method. So let's type the command to list the registration input fields. As you can see, we now have the list of the registration input fields. At this point, thanks to the interpreter, we are able to extract information about forms contained in a web page. We can use the results obtained with the interpreter in order to write a simple but parametric script that extracts all of the form information of any target passed as an argument. So let's create our tool called extractor.rb. We will store it on our desktop. Let's write our script. We have to do exactly the same things we went over with the interpreter, but now we want a more readable and user-friendly output format. As usual, let's first require the needed libraries, which are OpenURI and Nokogiri. The target will be an argument of the script, so we can get it with the following statement. Let's request and parse the target web page using a combination of Nokogiri and OpenURI. Now we have to extract each form from the provided resource. For each form, we want to extract the action and the method attributes. Remember that we want a readable output. Therefore, we have to put to stdout for information in a clear and structured format. So let's first print the form we are inspecting. After that, let's print the form action. Now let's print the methods of the forms. Also, we want the list of input fields with their name and type. So let's extract and print to stdout each input field. Remember that we are using the same extraction methods seen with the interpreter. First, let's iterate through all the input fields with the following statement. Now we can start printing their values. So let's print the name and the type of the selected field. Now the script is complete and ready to be executed. Let's test it with the registration page of the Foo Radio Hack Me. As you can see, we have the same results we saw before with the browser and the interpreter, but obviously they are available now in an easy-to-read output format. The power of the script really shows when used against web resources with big and more complex forms. You may need a lot of time to inspect this page using the browser. So let's try to use our script against the registration form of a Google account. As you can see, the form has a lot of input fields. Let's try to inspect the HTML code and see what it looks like. We have to find the form element, so let's search the form keyword. Then we have to find each input node belonging to the form, and we have to write down its name and type. It's not a difficult task, but it does take time. Let's now use our simple extractor script. As you can see, we have the full list in just a few seconds. The script saves us a lot of time. Obviously, the script is very simple right now, and it may be improved with a lot of additional features. For example, we can see from the Google registration form list that there are some CAPTCHA fields. Our script may be improved with CAPTCHA detection. Remember that when you write a real tool, it should be error-free. Let's see, for example, what happens when we don't provide a valid target web resources input. We have an error, so using exceptions in our script is a right choice. Also, a tool should provide some helpful information. So take it into account when you develop a community-based tool or script. It will be greatly appreciated. In this video, we have seen how we can extract information about a web resource's forms using Ruby combined with OpenURI and the Nokogiri library. We have seen also the right strategy to follow when designing a basic tool. Indeed, use the interpreter to get instant results is a right choice if you want to save time and learn quickly. Thank you for joining us.